Hi everybody, Tim Hughes here, co-founder and CEO of DLA Ignite. With me today is Sally Eaves. Sally Eaves and I are going to talk about technology for good and what we can do to create technology for purpose, which is something that I think we're all probably concerned about certain things in technology, whether it's 5G or whatever. Sally, before we go any further, where can people get hold of you?
Oh, great, Tim. I've been really looking forward to speaking to you this week. And probably everywhere on social media. At Sally Eaves is my handle, especially Twitter, probably my most active one there, alongside LinkedIn. Also have two new websites, one aspirationalfutures.com and one sallyeaves.com as well. And there's a new book on this subject coming early next year as well. So keep in touch for that. And yeah, I love conversation. I love collaboration and I love mentoring too. So feel free to reach out on any channel.
And your surname is Eaves for people.
It is indeed, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So why don't you fill us in terms of some context about how you got here, how you got involved in Tech for Good, the hashtag, and your background. Fill us in.
Absolutely. I think there'd be, say, three pillars really to what I do. So one, obviously, technology, and my background is as a CTO. And then more recently, I do more strategic advisory around emergent technology topics, also around education. So I'm a professor in quite a few emergent technology subjects, but also a really strong background in community education as well. So I do a lot of things like kind of makerspace environments and kind of hack kids. It sounds really the wrong term, but it's literally like a
hacking kids.
Yeah, I know it sounds wrong, but it is an official term in terms of helping kids understand how things work. So it's that word hacking. Like the real meaning of that is, curiosity, what's behind it, taking it apart and understanding. So we do like Sunday sessions to help people take apart computers and rebuild them and see how they work. So that was my kind of community education kind of setting. And then the third one is most definitely impact. So yeah, tech, education and impact. So I really believe that, we can harness digital transformation for business, but also we can do that for society as well and create shared value. So that's the kind of background to that really. And I have a non-for-profit, which is called Aspirational Futures. And that's very much around inclusion and diversity and really opening up access to education and scaling tech for good projects.
Fantastic. All worthwhile causes. And the thing that always amazes me is that you are always on social.
Yes.
It seems like you're sitting there with if there is anybody out there who wants to connect with you, and the thing is that you will always have discussions with people, and it's really great to see that somebody using it for what it's designed to do.
Thank you. I remember your conversation with my friend Spiros a few months ago, and you were talking about community, and that's how I got into social media in the first place. So you want to find people like-minded to yourself and how you can build and scale things together. But also I value diversity of experience and opinion as well, and can help you learn and rethink and unlearn yourself by sharing those different perspectives. So made some really wonderful friends.
Because Spiros and you and I have been on the same program.
Yes.
From Sky, even though we weren't in the same place at the same time because they recorded it.
Absolutely.
And Spiros and I would always put you in the bracket as well in terms of it's about community. It's social media with an emphasis on social, and you create this community of people, and then with like-minded ideas, and then you support that.
Absolutely. It's all about that. And I certainly advise other people as well. If you want to develop a new skill in a certain area, or you're trying to make something happen, because for me, Tech for Good, it's not just talking about it, it's all about the action. And social media can be a wonderful conduit really to help make that happen. And I think sometimes it can get a bad rap, social, because of some of the negative stuff you can see on there. But overwhelmingly, I think, channel it the right way. It can be an amazing force for good. I really believe that. And I'd strongly advise people to get involved, and feel free to get in touch with me. I'm really happy to do so.
So what is Tech for Good? Explain it. It's a hashtag in Tech for Good, but what's the philosophy behind it?
Absolutely. And the hashtag's important because, again, it's a way to identify and bring people together. But it's so much more than that. It can't just be about words. It can't just be conceptualizing it. It's got to be about how you action it and scale it. So I think for me, the key thing behind Tech for Good is purpose. Tech is a duality, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's all about the purpose you put it to. So for me, Tech for Good is the purpose behind it. How can we apply it? What can we do to, so as an example, say like Fridays recently, I've been doing a thing with a local hospice. We've been coming online. I've got a little guitar. You can probably see my miniature one in the background. We've been doing almost like the show and tell sessions that you get at school, where you bring an instrument and you share a story, and tech's secondary to make that happen. You combined it with something like music, which can bring joy. So Tech for Good can be creating joy, helping people express and give hope. And I think over COVID, that's so vital to bring that connection. But it can also more broadly be, how can we tackle the biggest challenges in society? So I always use the framework really of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. It's 10 years towards the 2030 targets this very month, actually. And there's 17 goals, and they really look at everything around social, environmental and economic impact and how these different areas impact on each other. And really Tech for Good is a major channel to help achieve these goals. And at the moment, we're falling behind in certain areas. And, COVID hasn't helped in that. Yeah. I think it's a good framework to help pull these different areas together. But yeah, Tech for Good, it's all about the purpose. And I would really strongly say the collaborative element is a huge part of that. It's the huge part of making that happen.
No, you go on.
I was going to say there's a model, because I've got a bit of a research background as well. And one of the things is something called the quadruple helix. And that's looking at the different stakeholders in society. So, for example, we've got civil society and NGOs, academia and research, we've got big business, we've got bleeding edge startups, and we've got government. And it's all around these different voices coming together. So for me, that's, again, something that brings Tech for Good together. It's not one area or one person or one organization coming to the fore. It's got to be that fusion, that cross-fertilization of ideas and different voices at the table. Because, again, it's the purpose of how you apply technology. And you need to make sure as many voices are involved in that conversation as well. Otherwise, quite unintentionally, sometimes you could build something that isn't meeting the purpose you think it is, because you haven't got those right voices in the conversation.
And the great example of that would be some of the discussions that have been going on about artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
Where the process was like recruitment, and the recruitment was generally biased.
Absolutely.
And so they built the bias into the artificial intelligence.
Spot on. And bias can be very much baked into the data, quite often from quite historical data sets, for example, that aren't so relevant today. So we really have to look at that very closely. But there's also the issue of human biases that can be baked into data. I think from memory, it's about 180 human biases kind of spread over 7 different areas. And it's quite a staggering number. And if you think about that, we have to really be careful and go back to how we're building things through artificial intelligence, and going back to look at the potential risk of data being baked in from things that have been there from years before. So it's really important. And for me, diversity of experience and who's building that AI is a really important foundation to make that happen. And gender is a big important part of that, and race, but also diversity of experience. I think we need people with creative backgrounds, philosophy backgrounds, historians, for example. In that way, we can reduce the risk of inherent bias that could be completely accidental, not just the cases of explicit bias we've seen as well.
Well, yeah, that's the last thing we need is more white male, middle class people with privilege, basically dictating what's going on, because they've not done very well so far. So, it's we need to have that diversity. Diversity is the thing that drives creativity. And I agree with you that, you need to reach out into different parts of society, because people think differently. The arts think differently, away from programmers who think in a particular way. And we need to bring those diversity of ideas together.
Absolutely.
You actually said when we prepared this that there was 180 different human biases. So I actually looked it up, and it's true.
Oh, fantastic! There we go. Yeah, excellent.
So
excellent.
I've actually said it to somebody else, and they said, and so it's become my, that's now become a bit of a dinner party story for me, which I thank you.
No problem.
So what are you doing now to make it happen and make Tech for Good to be something that's, as you said, baked into tech development and tech thinking?
Yes, so there's probably various different things. So I'll probably share a few different examples of projects.
Please. Yeah. Right.
So one example, I always think it's nice to be tangible as possible, isn't it? So one example would be the HPC consortium. So that's all around high performance computing. There's been a big program going on over the last few months, bringing together different universities, bringing together like at least 11 big tech companies and smaller ones as well, all around how can we look at bringing together that data processing power and capacity and using it to mine around COVID-19, for example. How can we do things faster? And again, it comes down to collaboration with that computing power and capacity. So I've been involved in specific projects on that. And again, I think it really articulates what we can do if we come together. I know there have been developments there that would probably take 15 to 18 months, and we're seeing them in 8 to 9 weeks. So that's been one really tangible one, I think, that really brings things to the fore. Another one, obviously, with the work I do with Aspirational Futures. So that's very much working with people of different ages. So we've got primary school, secondary, university, but also older adults that are looking to upskill or reskill. And again, never seen such a big increase in people in that particular age group at the moment who want to get involved and learn new skills and really broaden their horizons of what's possible with, the furlough situation we've had in the UK, across the world, and just people being more uncertain about what comes next. So that's been really important. And we do things like data reuse. So at the moment, 90% of data that's archived is never used again, which I think, again, talking about numbers, that's quite a staggering one, I think. And if you think about what's happening next with things like 5G, I talk about the 3 V's of data, so volume, veracity, and velocity. And if you think of 5G, what that's going to do in terms of enabling, smart homes, smart cities, smart society, smart factories, all aspects of this, those 3 V's are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need to filter that noise more effectively. And what can we do with all the data waste? So for me, that's a big part of what we do there. And we use it to tackle skills gaps. So around the lack of diversity in AI, in blockchain, and in cybersecurity specifically. So those 3 are our big focus areas. And we do that with all those different age groups. We do a lot of mentoring and reverse mentoring. And we try to focus our efforts on projects that don't just do good in a local area, but we can look to scale them. So we do like pilot projects and then do that ripple effect to prove it and try and get, like sponsorship partners or people investing their time or resources, bringing all that together and scaling them. So we're very kind of local but global in terms of perspectives, and physical and online as well, particularly online lately.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean that's really fantastic. But I think you're finding in certain places that things can go a bit slowly.
Yes, absolutely. And I think going back to what I said earlier about different voices coming together, that's really pivotal. And again, social can be a great way as well, because, a lot of things you need to find the gatekeeper to help make things happen. And I always try and be as pragmatic as possible. And, I love people. I genuinely love talking to people. And I think if you can share with heart what you care about and try different ways to make things happen and things, I think that's the way forward. And I genuinely have gone about it in that way. And you reach out and you try and find people with like-minded passions, and also that different kind of complementary strengths and access to different areas, and bring them together. It's like jigsaw puzzle, isn't it, in many ways? So that's the way I've gone about it. And there's certain sectors that can be slower than others, but if you've got that cross-fertilization and different people coming together, it's easier to make things happen and make them happen quicker. And again, the piloting of different activities. I've opened hubs in conjunction with universities and in different country contexts as well, and also measuring that impact. I think when it comes to social impact in particular, that's always been one of the sticking points. People want to say, well, what's the proof? How do you show someone's been empowered by something? And people want quants quite often, and it's not an easy thing to put into that capacity. So again, I've been developing like models where you can show that return, right. And people show.
So you can measure this, can you?
Yes, I believe you can. And it's kind of a mixed methods approach across, qualitative data, alongside some quants as well, like a benchmark over time. So yeah, it's something I've put a lot of effort into, and a lot of pilot projects and monitoring that process. And I've just published a couple of research papers on similar themes at the moment as well. And again, that helps because it helps you build up that evidence base to show, this can be done, and this what works well, this maybe doesn't work so well. So we can learn from that and we can iterate it and do it different next time. And doing it in different, cities, rural areas, different country contexts, again, really helps because you can see what works, what doesn't. And yeah, just gives you that opportunity to grow and try things differently too.
But I think you've said to me in the past that there's lots of silos. And,
yes.
and sometimes, it takes, was it 6 years to actually change a university course?
Yes, absolutely. And again, I always say education, technology, they just go absolutely hand in hand. And one of the biggest things to affect change is that educational base, most definitely. And you're right. I think typically it's 6 years for an entire university course and say 2 years for 20%. It's slow. And obviously with the speed of technology, I mean, this year more than any other one, we've got this massive acceleration of innovation and you create that lag. And it's not anybody's fault necessarily. It's way certain things have developed. It's not easy, but how can we bring more traditional education in line with what we're doing in community education? How can we learn lessons and fuse better? And I do think what's happened this year, there's been this force, hasn't there, to obviously do remote learning at scale. It's the biggest experiment in that way of its time, but we can learn so much on that. But we have to take this opportunity to reflect on what's worked well over this process and what hasn't. Not everybody's got access to the same technology. There are digital equity gaps across the world. We've seen occasions, and this was one of the projects I mentioned earlier on, building Wi-Fi in a car park because kids were sitting there because they couldn't go back home and do the homework. And, even like my goddaughter, she was expected to do a certain activity for homework, and there was an expectation she had a certain type of phone and a certain type of system. And she was 11 and didn't want to say, well, I can't do that. And so, in every different context on a different scale, it can affect everybody. So we have to draw attention to that. But I'm really keen, and what we're doing with Aspirational Futures is really advancing this open access to education around digital skills, and particularly in the target areas where there's a real gap around diversity of experience. And again, if anybody's listening to this who's interested in this area, feel free to talk. And because this is all about collaboration and partnership, and it's all about scale, sustainable scale. I really want to leave legacy. Yeah. I
mean, the discussion wouldn't go. We couldn't have a discussion without STEM.
Yes.
And talking about how we can get more people of diversity, regardless of what it is, on board with this, and try and bridge the digital gap that we've got. I mean, what are you doing about STEM?
Yes, so one of our pillars within Aspirational Futures is from STEM to STEAM. So for me, that's massively important, and the STEM focus has been vital. But I have a fear that it's one of these things with unintentional consequences.
Yes.
In the fact there's been so much focus on it, it's negated a focus on the arts. And I mean the arts in the most broadest sense of everything from sport to music, for example. And that's so vital for expression. It's vital for building up our emotional confidence, our emotional intelligence, our ability to question. And I always say, with the tech skills in the world, we can do so much, but we need to have that creative imagination and that confidence to be able to think what that future should be. So we need to have that balance. And I fear there's a lost generation around the arts at the moment. So one of our key things is all around STEAM learning. So STEM is vital. I couldn't agree more, but we bring it together as a more holistic view, really, in terms of the STEAM. I think visibility of role models is so vital, sharing actual projects as well. Yeah, sorry, Tim. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think role models, I mean, my business partner, Adam Gray, his daughter, Maddie, she's at the age where, she said to him, who are the role models as a female that I should be looking up to? And one of the things that I always say to females of my age is that you need to be basically standing up and saying, I've got here, and this is and you can be like me. Because young females are looking for female role models.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. It's so vital, and kind of showing as well, what a tech career is and what it can be. And there are so many different roles in that as well. I think there's still a perception that a tech career involves a certain skill set. For example, around coding, and coding is an important part of it, but it's only one aspect within a team, and you can bring in so many different perspectives. And again, with the Tech for Good projects I'm talking about here, I think they're so great to invoke curiosity and show what you can actually achieve through technology. And I like to think that that's a way also of helping to change this narrative about, if you want to go into tech, all these different things are open to you, and you could be part of something that contributes to our biggest challenges of our time, and do that with that positive technology mindset. I think is massively important. So that's something we really like to do in terms of showcasing, and in terms of mentor partnerships as well, showing someone, finding a good fit about where the next step on your journey could be, and opening up, again with education. I think sometimes it can be too prescriptive. Again, it's kind of the way that the system has been built. It almost feels like you're narrowing choices. an earlier and earlier age. And I think if we can hold on to the fact that not everybody knows what they want to do when they're 6, 7, 10, 11, even older than that. And if we can try and keep this richness in the curriculum, and if we can't do it within, let's find ways like with our foundation to bring this community education in. And, for example, we've replaced after school clubs in a particular, in a couple of schools in the UK with some of our clubs. And it's that way of fusing in different opportunities and keep those doors open. And let's not bang doors shut. Let's keep as many doors open as possible, I think.
And I've been in tech for 20 years and I can't code. And it was, when I first started in my role at International Computers Limited, ICL, if you remember, the UK computer company, they actually wanted people with an understanding of business.
Yes.
But there was that balance of, we need to have technical people, but we also want to have people with an understanding of business, because what we do is that we solve business problems. So we need to have someone that can understand the business issues and then translate that to the technical people. So there's a role for everybody. You don't need to just be really good at maths, physics, and chemistry to get into tech.
Couldn't agree more. And I mean, if we think about, the reasons for tech project failure, probably for the last 40 years, it's been about lack of alignment as one of probably the top 3 reasons, hasn't it, across, for example, IT and business areas. And I think the same thing applies here. We need to have that depth and breadth, for example, specialisms in a certain area, but that appreciation of other skill sets. It's like having a toolbox, isn't it? And you can dip into different things. And I think if we look at what's happening in the world at the moment, if we feel that we've got this toolbox, this canvas of different things that we can dip into, isn't that a great way to help us feel more confident for the future? And yes, we don't know everything that's going to come ahead. And we've got to be more comfortable with ambiguity, I think across the board. And I like to think that what we're doing is a little way to help towards that, in terms of, not everything is fixed. But if we have this, we can dip into, we can grow with you, and we can support you on that path and keep those doors open and give you that confidence that it's okay. And, we can adapt, we can be ambidextrous to change, and we don't know everything that's going to come. But if you can dip into this, and also how to learn smarter. So we also help people with things like meta condition. And it's a great way, it's like a lovely process through there to help you reflect on your learning process and learn smarter. Because we talk about smart tech a lot, but I think we need to talk maybe about smart learning a lot and helping people on that journey too.
And one of the things you said to me about owning up when things go wrong.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Everyone makes mistakes personally, as an organisation, whatever context it might be. And I think it's about all things in life, isn't it? You learn from that and be transparent about it. So the AI example you quoted earlier on, there's been a few cases, hasn't there? And I think one of the problems as well, it's not just that something has gone wrong. It can even be that the perception of something going wrong. If you can't explain an AI decision in probably 30 seconds to a minute, you've already got a problem, because there's that perception of lack of transparency. And some AI decisions affect some of our biggest life choices. We were talking about moving house, weren't we, earlier on, and things, and access to mortgages or loans or healthcare, whatever else it might be. There could be big life decisions. So we need to be able to help people and show people there's a criteria here. And for example, if you weren't successful this time, these are the things that you can work on to help you be better for the next opportunity, if you see what I mean, to help you work on that and develop it. So it's not like a closed door, to use that analogy again. So transparency and explainability around AI is key. And again, if something's gone wrong, going forward and saying, yeah, we messed that up. And we're really sorry about this, but this is the steps we're going to do to put it right and to help you have confidence. I think people have far more respect for that situation, rather than saying, oh, nothing to see here, and months later there was, if you see what I mean. So yeah, explainability, transparency, and putting something right, because everyone can make mistakes. Absolutely.
And what are you doing in terms of because there's different stakeholders within any company or any project? What are you doing with regard to Tech for Good and different stakeholders? Yeah,
absolutely. Again, it's all about bringing those different voices together. So we work with quite a few organisations, and again, it tends to be quite departmental in terms of the work we do. So as an example, just a couple of weeks ago, we used a process through design thinking, and we did like a cross-organisational hackathon, looking about how to develop skills towards a particular SDG target that was also aligned to the organisation. So saying it wasn't just doing something for the sake of it, it was deeply aligned to the values and purpose of that organisation. And it was a great skills gain along that process. And then with the foundation, some of the people then were then going forward mentoring and committing to a year's mentorship with some of the kids that were going through the process. So again, it's that mutual benefit, mutual respect, and mutual learning, which is fantastic.
So is there, I mean, what's the future? I mean, where are we going to go with Tech for Good, and where do you see, where will it be in 10 years' time?
Right, I want to avoid using the word tipping point, but it's in my brain. I desperately don't want to say it, but I do think we're at a point of resonance that we've never seen before. I mean, this is something I've deeply cared about as long as I can remember. I've been doing community clubs, for example, since I was 14, 16. So this is something that's, embedded in my heart. And I think that, in the past few years, it's been talked about more, and there have been examples of it in action. But sometimes it's been a little bit of an add-on, if you see what I mean. You mentioned about the hashtag Tech for Good. Sometimes you see it used, and it's kind of a little bit on the periphery, and it's used as a hashtag rather than the intent of community and bringing like minds together. But I am seeing more and more now. There's a groundswell of caring about it. I think what's happened over the last few months has helped with that in many ways, because we've seen the importance of tech to bring people together. It's been the uniting conduit in many areas to help us stay in touch. It's been vitally important, and from a healthcare point of view, vital as well, as we talked about earlier. So I think that's helped people look at tech differently. But I also think we've all had time to pause. It's kind of like an age of reset in many different ways, and reimagining what are we doing, what are we spending on our time on. And in the same way that we've all been affected by COVID, there are other big challenges too, like climate, for example. Can we not harness that same collaboration to the other challenges too? I just think people are stopping to think, like supply chains, classic example. I mean, how many times in the past have we, bought things and not really thought about, the journey that's been to get to our door? But now we've had the fragility, of supply chains brought to the fore. We've not been able to get things so easily. It's been harder, and we've valued more what's around us and the journey it's been on. So again, I think it's helped us to stop and reflect. So I think that's why we've got a contagion that's not COVID. I think it's a contagion of change that's around Tech for Good. And, I want to be at the very heart of scaling that, because it's everything that I believe in. And the book that comes out next year is all about raising funds for this. It's helping to scale some of the projects we talked about earlier on. So again, it's not just talking about it, it's doing it. It's doing something with the purpose to help things scale and make it sustainable at the same time.
I ran a Macmillan coffee morning this morning.
Yes, I saw. Yes,
and raised. So far, I've raised £300, but that's £300 that we have. My business partner's had cancer, I just want to do something.
Exactly.
Okay, £300, which is what, $450, isn't a lot of money, but it's $450 more than we had at 9 o'clock this morning.
Exactly.
I feel that sometimes we shrug our shoulders and say there's nothing I can do. There's always something that you can do. It doesn't matter how small it is.
Exactly, and that's what I would really encourage people as well. And I couldn't agree more. I lost my dad to leukemia when I was quite young, and it's a subject very, very close to my heart, and it's affected me in so many different ways. And I couldn't agree with you. His picture's literally behind me up there, and that's one of the things that helped me get into certain things. Frankly, was around that particular subject. But and I think you've hit on something there in the fact that people, I think some of the barriers around Tech for Good is people don't know how to get involved. And there's the want, there's the, I'd love to do something like that. And then they just don't know who to turn to, who to talk to. And I'm feeling like I can't make a difference in isolation. And so I think what you shared there is a really good example. If everybody did that, or did examples like that, what we've got there coming together, that's a real wave of making a difference, isn't it? And again, anybody listening to this who wants to get involved and isn't quite sure how, please get in touch, because I'm more than happy to jump on a call and get together and look at ways to help. And even if it's not with what I'm directly doing, I know a lot of people in the area, so I might be able to point you in a good good direction from that point of view as well. It's all about
and that's fantastic, and I know that you would do that.
Absolutely.
And it only takes, if you think, if there's 100, 1,000 people of the 7 billion people in this world who are sitting there going, if only I could just do something, and if they all did it, the change that would take place.
Absolutely.
It's the change. It's micro change. There's no speak that it's like the sports thing of the little changes in what you do in sport can make those big differences. And I think that there's an ability to have a really great, I won't say revolution, but evolution And certainly what we've seen in COVID is there has been massive change. And I still don't think we actually realize, I say this a lot, which is in 2 years' time, we'll look back and go, things change so much over those last 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And there's I think there's different factors also outside of the last few months that's kind of driving this change as well. So one would be Generation Z. I talk about conscious consumerism quite a lot. And again, we're seeing people walking away from products and services, whether it's buying it or using it or advocating it or even working for or with certain organizations. If you haven't got that alignment there, professional and personal values are so hybrid and aligned. And we're starting to see that change, I think, in terms of consumer behavior now as well. And again, in terms of things changing, I think we're going to see much more of a ripple effect in terms of multi-generational yes. Behavioural and expectation change, and we're seeing that even some of the big tech events that have happened over the last few months and some of the big keynotes. I would say across the board, I've been involved in quite a few of them, and like a third, I would say, of some of the keynotes were devoted far more to how we're making a difference for our community. So there's far more active listening. And far more of this shared value philosophy that I talk about and advocate. And I'm really heartened about where we're going. And after what we're all experiencing in 2020, and as you were saying, the legacy to come of that, let's make something really truly positive happen for that. And for me, that is the scaling of Tech for Good. And I think we have an opportunity to harness something very difficult and all the different challenges we've faced, and let's pull that together and come together and harness it for better.
And so when are you hoping your book's going to come out?
So that will be coming out, again, slightly a COVID factor on this one. So now it's coming out March 2021. Yes.
Oh, fabulous.
So news on that will be coming out. So from November, you'll start to hear more about that. Absolutely.
Okay, so you must have written it or have it finished or.
Nearly all of it. Yeah, the only
they
thing
must be like printing it in the printing press, aren't they?
It's nearly there. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to do a bit of a reflection about what's happened over the last few months as well. So that's the bit I'm kind of focused on in the last few weeks. But yeah, absolutely. It's on the home straight to coin your sporting kind of analogy from just
fantastic. Now. And is it self-published or have you got a publisher?
Publisher, yeah.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Thank you.
So who's it published with?
Pact Publishing.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure if I was meant to have said that, but anyway, but there you go. That's a bit of a reveal there. But yeah, that's what's happening. Yeah. Fantastic.
So is anything else, Sally, you wanted to mention about Tech for Good?
Well, that was an amazing conversation. I just loved it. I think honestly, my last thing would be more of a kind of reiterating what I said earlier in terms of if you're watching this and hopefully you're excited about what we can do as a collective, then just please, I really wholeheartedly mean reach out and get in touch, because there's loads of opportunities what I'm doing around mentoring and around partnership and a collaboration. Whether you're a big organization or an individual in any different sector, there's a role with the sort of things that we're scaling, and there's some amazing plans both in physical hubs and everything we're doing digitally as well, obviously for the rest of this year, but particularly for next year as well. So there's real tangible opportunities for different sides of organisation, but as individuals too. So please do reach out, and I'd love to collaborate. Absolutely.
And it's your Twitter is Sally Eaves.
Yes, that's the easiest way. So there are a couple of things around the foundation, but for seamlessness, at Sally Eaves is probably the easiest way. So
yeah, all LinkedIn. But you're a Twitter person, aren't you? Really, I think.
Yeah, very much a Twitter person, but I do quite a lot on LinkedIn. So either of those two, I think, are the best. Yeah, they're the best channels.
Right, Sally, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate your time. I mean, for me, it's really inspirational that we're actually properly now able to change the world. And it's really exciting that both our generation is involved in that, but we're also in a position to bring the generations that are coming through that and to motivate them to want to make the changes as well. Because my partner's got a 25-year-old, and he just says, when he bought a house, he said, "I can't believe you put up with all this stuff." And we kind of said, "Well, that's how it happens." He said, "Well, we're going to." He's a millennial. He said, "Well, we're going to stop it." When he asked us, "How do you get a mortgage?" And he said, "No, that's for old people." He said, "I've got this app," and he bought it all, and he got it all from an app. And we were just like amazed, and the change is coming.
It is absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that example there, financial inclusion, 1.7 billion people in the world unbanked or underbanked. And again, one of the projects we're doing, this is in Africa, is all around repurposing data. So using, so AI is great for unstructured data. So SMS, text messages and phones, using that as a news source for creditworthiness, things like that as well. So there's so many examples of that. And sorry, you reminded me of something else now, Tim. Being pragmatic again, also repurposing older technology for good as well. So that's sometimes a good idea, and there's so much we can do with older tech as well. It can be amazing.
I used to do in my previous job, I covered Europe, Middle East, Africa, and we used to do a lot of work in Africa. And it was amazing about how old phones. So there's a charity that where if you've got old phones in your drawer, there's a charity, I can't remember what it's called, but you basically they'll send you a bag and you send them off, and they're repurposed, and it's like it's life and death for some people, because it's how they transfer money.
Absolutely, it really is. Makes all the difference in the world. And also so a literacy project that I was involved in as well, these older phones can make all the difference there as well, taking away that reliance on the internet, using cloud. And so literacy problems was running through families, and it was a way that like mum and dad could effectively, using this phone, read to their kids for the very first time. So again, it's breaking down one of those doors that had been shut and opening up so many new opportunities. So for me, aspirational futures and a lot of things we've been talking about today, it's all about democratization of opportunity.
It is, and empowering people, everybody across the world. Everybody has an opportunity, and tech provides them with that opportunity. And it's exciting times.
Indeed, absolutely, Tim. It's been a joy to discuss this. Yeah,
Sally, thank you for coming on and sharing that with us. It's really been inspiring, and I really appreciate it. Especially, you've had a rough couple of days, and we were talking earlier on, and you deserve to go away and have a couple of days in the hotel.
Bless you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally. It's been fantastic. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
You too. Take care. Speak soon. Bye, Tim.